Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. We are back. I know it's been a few weeks, just been crazy. We moved into the house. I was at AWFS last week in Vegas for a couple days, or for really like a day and a half. But we are back with a build video. This is a little pantry built in, and it's kind of cool. And now it's all got to come apart and get stained and finished, but we're going to get it to this point. So here we go. All right, so we're back. Like I said, just been crazy busy traveling and moving into the house and all that kind of stuff. So my apologies for not getting videos out the last couple weeks, but we're gonna try and get back in full swing with this thing. So this pantry built-in is going in a really tiny room. This is literally the room right here. Now there's a doorway here, and this is all gotta be kind of taken apart. And I built it in a way that I think we're going to be able to get it into the room, so in pieces. So it's going to be interesting install, but it's going to come back apart to get finished. There is going to be a stone countertop here that this whole upper section will sit on top of. But here we go. Let's build this thing. All right, so here is the little pantry we're going to be working on. So it's in a pretty tight room. So this angle here is just showing it without the wall here. This is where the doorway is. Anyways, so this whole thing is going to be kind of built in pieces. Otherwise, we won't be able to get it into the room. So we are going to dry fit everything before assembly. You can see here's the shop drawings here. And so we're going to just start cutting up parts and slowly putting this thing together. All right, here we go. So this is all rift white oak, this pantry. So we got a bunch of sheets of it and start breaking them down. I start with cutting the backs for these because the backs are really wide. All the grain obviously needs to be going vertical for the backs, and they're over 48 inches, so I have to glue them up. So I start with the backs, always trying to cut, when I'm breaking down my sheet goods, trying to cut all the biggest parts first, and then you work your way down to the smaller stuff. Now these are obviously a little awkward. These are the lower backs, but the upper backs are really big. So I brought them over the bench, and I'm connecting them with LAMELLO Clamex connectors just for a quick glue up, and then these will be ready by the time I get done cutting all the other parts. Not that I was going to get to assembly on this day anyways, but just figured I'd get the backs knocked out right away. And the Clamex are great for these. Now, obviously, the holes are on the back side of this, so you're never going to see them. And then we just continue with all the parts. So there's a bunch of parts, a lot of miter folds. I was jamming out. And yeah, literally this whole thing is plywood. For some of the fillers and stuff, I could have used hardwood. I sometimes don't really like to mix on a project like this where it's mostly stain grade plywood, especially the rift white oak, mixing in the hardwood, because I feel like it just takes stain and finish so much different than the veneer that it like really stands out. So I try and keep everything plywood. And here I'm just biscuiting some fillers, and I'll show you guys a quick little trick with the LAMELLO for making this offset cut. All right, so a quick little LAMELLO tip for doing my fillers. My filler will go like this, and this piece goes to the wall. So I got to scribe this to the wall. So I'll do a 3/4 offset to this biscuit back here, so I can snap it in and it'll be offset 3/4. And then I can get a 3/4 scribe it to the wall, pop it off, and snap it back in. So to do that, the first biscuit, I'm gonna shoot like this with the plate down, and then I'm gonna put this up. And if you make this detachable plate here, and you make this flush at the top of this plate, it ends up being a perfect 1 1/8 and a 3/4 offset for that second biscuit. So that way here you don't have to pull out your tape and measure an 1 1/8 down to the center point on the thing. You can just put it in there, make it flush, and shoot your biscuit. So just a quick little tip for you with the LAMELLO. I kind of found that out by accident a couple months ago, and I realized that it was like flush at the top there, and I was like, oh, sweet. So it works out really good. And then I went back to the saw and just started mitering all my shelves, cutting them upside down on the slider. Works good. It looks like the piece is bending, but it's really that outfeed section. I got to put a leg under it because it is like just leaning way down. And then all the smaller ones, I cut the miters over on the regular table saw. And this setup, since we've moved the saws, has been working really good. They don't interfere with each other at all. Before, when I had the sliding table saw, it turned 90 degrees the other way, and then if you guys remember, I had this saw kind of on an angle out towards the end of it. If Alex or Rowdy was on the slider and I was on this, or vice versa, we were kind of interfering with each other. So this is a much better setup. And Alex went ahead while I was cutting them. I would just feed him the pieces, and he started gluing all these shelves up. And it's been great having Alex in the shop. I think he's been with us for like a month and a half now, maybe longer. And there's all the parts. But he's been working out really great. He's picking things up quick. And yeah, I think he's enjoying it. We enjoy having him around. So it's been working out good. All right, so now it was time to start pulling stuff out. I'm just doing a quick sanding on these. Everything is going to come back apart at the end and get like finish sanded before we stain. So I was just hitting them quickly. But this is the bottom of the lower cabinet, and I'm just going to start piecing this whole thing together. I tried to pre-plan everything as best I could. There was like one or two things that once I got to the end of this build that I would have done differently, but for the most part, all my planning worked out pretty well. So connecting this bottom section with some Clamex connectors again, just because I'm trying to, I could have clamped this up and saved the connectors, but I'm trying to use these parts right away. So the Clamex are great. Each one of those connectors is like over 200 pounds of clamping pressure. If you're interested in a LAMELLO, my affiliate link is down below. If you guys have any questions on them, you can always shoot me an email down below in the description. My email's down there. Shoot me an email. Happy to help. But the LAMELLO is an amazing tool. And yeah, it's awesome. So right here, I'm just cutting up some scrap plywood to make a couple toe kicks for the lower cabinet. And that is Rue glue. I'm just gluing and nailing these together. The Rue glue is good for non-porous materials. It is not as strong as like wood glue, like gluing up wood stuff. It's not strong like that. It doesn't create that strong of a bond, but it's strong enough for this. All right, and then I could level the toe kick on the floor. Got a line on that block, and I just shim up to my line. And it's much easier than trying to have your laser set right at the top of the toe kick. And then if you can't really see it in the back, this is a much easier method, I think. And the nice thing about these wood floors is that I can secure these toe kicks right to the floor so they're not moving all over the place. All right, now we can start assembling the lower cabinet. So the side comes down flush with that front miter fold. So I'm using some biscuits to offset it just so it keeps everything aligned. Just using regular biscuits with the LAMELLO Classic X. And if you have, I have the LAMELLO Classic X and I have the Zeta P2. But if you only have the Zeta P2, it can shoot regular biscuits as well. The Classic X cannot do what the Zeta does, but the Zeta can do what the Classic X does. You just have to change the cutter out. And then typically I would like brad nail my parts together and then pre-drill and screw them off. But this is all going to be coming back apart, so I'm not putting any nails, just so I don't have to fight the nails when we disassemble everything. And then more sanding. Lots of sanding along the way. And again, I'm just sanding these quickly because they're going to be sanded again before we stain everything. These will be getting like it's a charcoal-ish stain, but it's not like, you can see a piece in the background there. That's what they'll all kind of look like when we're done. That piece that's standing up in front of the flag back there. So for this house, we're actually doing a full kitchen, and this is like a pantry and like this closet, little pantry room. And then there's another like little butler's pantry area that we're doing. So that panel there will be that lower cabinet with drawers goes on the right side of that. And then here's the top of the lower cabinet, assembling it the same way I did the lower with some Clamex connectors. And the lower cabinet is starting to come together. And I forgot to put, if you see up on the top section, there's a piece of edge banding. I forgot to edge band before we glued up that miter fold. So when we take this back apart, I will add a piece of edge banding to that with some iron on. All right, and then I could roll this thing over and throw the backs on. Here's one of those backs that I glued up earlier. And these joints came out really good. They're all out of the same pieces, so you won't even be able to tell that there's a joint there. And I did put the joint like in the back corner, just so that it's in a spot that won't be as noticeable. And honestly, this is like the first full day that I had been in the shop actually building stuff. I've been all over the place. Alex has been jamming out again. Alex has been kind of holding down the fort while me and Rowdy have been off on job sites installing stuff and running around picking up materials and doing different things. And it's just been nice having somebody in the shop getting something done while we're out getting other stuff done. All right, so then I was over digging through the boneyard of scrap wood to make some cleats, because this is how I'm going to mount the shelves in here. The shelves are 2 inches and they're made with 3/4 material, so I have 1/2 inch in between. And these are going to be the pieces that I screw to the box, and then the shelves will slide over, which you'll see in a minute. And this works really good. And when we install them at the house, they'll all get glued in and everything. And they will be Very solid. I just did some quick math and went and cut a spacer so I could mount the cleats inside the boxes. Pre-drilling some pilot holes so that I can just screw these things in. These are only 1/2 inch thick, so definitely want to pre-drill so you don't split the wood. And I am putting a little bead of glue on these. Throw them on top of my spacer and then just screw them in. And it was right around this point that I realized to get the shelves in, I am going to have to remove that panel on the right side to slide the shelves in, because the shelf on the left is deeper than where it turns the corner there, and I wouldn't be able to slide it in. And this is kind of how we would install floating shelves if they were going just on a wall as well, with some cleats and construction adhesive, and they come out solid. All right, first shelf going in, and I started hitting it, and I'm like, why the heck isn't it going in on the right? And then I was like, oh, duh, I need to notch it so that it can go around that cleat. So I grabbed a flush trim bit, just using a 1/4 inch compression bit, and I just routed in a little bit to remove that material so that it can slide over the cleat. And this will obviously be covered by the other small section of shelf that goes up against this. And then I did add another little piece of cleating along the face of that to support this shelf. And then the end panel can go back on. And then that lower section is done. And I was double checking my numbers and my measurements and everything multiple times on this. All my math was correct, which was nice. There was one point during the day where I thought that I made the upper shelves too short, but I was wrong in thinking that. My math was correct, and I did make all my parts the right size. And that lower cabinet was pretty heavy, but I was able to maneuver it around and get it in place. Then it just slips right over the toe kick. Everything's nice and level. Here's the lower cabinet. And then moving on to the upper cabinets. Now these obviously are some giant backs, and I did want them 3/4 because this is what I'm screwing my cleats and everything into, and these are big, heavy, bulky shelves, so I definitely wanted 3/4 to be screwing into, just so these things are really nice and strong. It just does make them heavy, very heavy. And then shooting some more biscuit slots for Clamex connectors, because that will be just like I did with the lower top and bottom section. That's how the top section on these uppers will attach to each other as well. And so one of the things I would have done differently is where I have these two backs connecting in the corner. I had the one on the right going past the one on the left, if this makes sense. I would have done that the other way so that the one on the right or the one on the left went behind the one on the right, and then my biscuit slots in the top and in the backs would line up or would be going straight in. The way I did it, you'll see when I go to attach it, they are like the opposite. I was able to make it work, but it would have been a little easier if I did it the other way. So these biscuit slots are where the backs will intersect and connect, and I use Clamex connectors, and I had to drill the hole in the face. So I measured so that the hole would be in the middle of each of the three shelves so that I can connect them, and then when we slide the shelves in, they'll cover those holes for the Clamex connectors. And then here I'm pre-attaching all my cleats to these cabinets before I lift these up and get them on top of the lowers. And just the same method that I did before. Little bead of glue, screwing them in, got a spacer there. I did have to add a piece of 3/4 in there when I use the spacer on the middle sections of shelves to account for the 3/4 shelf that it's going to be sitting on top of, or that the spacer would be sitting on top of. So when I put the spacer at the bottom for that bottom cleat, it was flush at the bottom. And then same thing for the other section. And now for the interesting part. Hopefully we don't drop it. That would really be a bummer at this point, to drop this thing and damage it. That Rift White Oak plywood, man, is not cheap. So I threw some cleats on the back. This is just for in the shop. Obviously, when we install this in the house, those will not be there. Everything will be attached to the wall. I did this just to support everything while I assemble it. And part of the reason for the full assembly on something like this, yes, for the video, we want to see it all together. But even if I wasn't making a YouTube video, a cabinet like this, I would still fully assemble just to make sure everything works before we get it to the house, because you don't want to get to the house and then figure out, oh, I measured this wrong, or this isn't going to work, and then you got to fight things in the field and try and make it work. Much easier to do it in the shop, make sure you're good to go, and then when you get to the house to install it, everything will go much smoother. And so I connected those backs with the Clamex, and then here's where the tops meet. You can see that tightened right up. And then time to get all the tape off all the shelves and sand them down quick. And I routed that notch. You can see it right there, just like I did in the lowers. Attach that little cleat to the face. And then the shelves will be ready to go in. Here's the first one. Come on. Come on. And it fit just like I planned. So I did forget to do something here. and even on the lower shelves as well. But I was able to get these to slide over that cleat pretty easy. Sometimes it's hard if the back of the shelf is pinching. It's hard to get it to slide over that back cleat. And so I took a not a flush trim bit, a round over bit, and ran it down the inside of the back of the shelf. So this just puts a round over on that inside edge and makes it so when it hits that square cleat in the back, it'll make it kind of slip over that a little bit easier. And these ones went in nice and easy. I was like afraid I was going to push this whole cabinet over, but we were able to get them all in. It'll be interesting taking this thing apart. And there it is. Boom. All right, so that's it for this one, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I kind of had fun building this. It's different, and it went together pretty much as planned. Now, like I said, the install is a whole nother story. That's going to be interesting, to say the least. There will be fillers here and here going to the wall. Same thing on this side and this side. There are drawers going down here with drawer fronts. Like I mentioned, there is a stone countertop sitting on this whole section. But cool project. There's also going to be lighting under here. So when we take the shelves off, I do have to dado for a light strip that's going in the bottom of these shelves. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. T-shirts. I've been saying for a long time about the t-shirts. They're available on the website. Quantities are limited, so you're going to want to get one ordered. They're pretty sick. We've got this color. We've got like another vintage gray color, and then we've got a vintage black long sleeve with white underneath. They're really cool. So check them out. They're high quality shirts too. They're pretty nice. So the website link is below. The LAMELLO link is below if you guys need a LAMELLO. My affiliate link is below. You can order right through there. If you have any questions on it, as always, hit me up. And that's it. We will see you next week.